So happy Thursday, everyone. This is Greg Dixon from Shared Visions Unlimited, and I'm here with Simon Dorey of Little Picture Books. And I've been running a series recently about writing for fun. And I'm assuming that you got into writing children's picture books more for fun than some kind of notion of becoming some kind of rich mogul out of your books.
Yes, originally I started writing them or telling stories to my kids when they were my eldest when she was younger, and it kind of continued with there when I had a second batch of kids, a couple of kids, and continued making up stories and telling them to them. So yes, it was all started off for fun, but then I thought, well, I can write better books than some of the books I'm writing, but then I realized that I wasn't writing how picture books should be written, so I had to go and learn how to do that better. I'm not saying I've achieved that perfection by any means. Yes, so started out as fun, hoping to make it as a fun career.
Yeah. And you've so how long was it from when you started the idea that you might actually want to create and publish your books to you started your company?
Well, the idea was fairly early on, but I was kind of put off by somebody locally. Went to a course about publishing children's books, and he kind of said, well, we can only publish 12 books a year. And this is before e-publishing really took off. And we can only do 12 books a year because the government gives us lots of money to do it. And so it kind of put the brakes on the whole concept that this could actually become a real live career. And then e-publishing took off, and I was involved in a previous company trying to do much the same thing, and was facilitated by e-publishing. And then along came COVID. I managed to get some grants from the government for help put this all online, get a website going, get some books published, because obviously with picture books, the biggest cost is the illustration side of things.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to do a lot of books, that's a lot of money.
So I think you mentioned that you write some books and produce the books, and then you also distribute books that are created by others. But with the ones that you create, are you doing the writing and then you're working with a graphic artist to do the...
I work at the moment. I do the writing, and I work with a lady called Karen Ferreira, who's based in South Africa, and she has a stable of illustrators. And so I can pick and choose which illustrator you use for which style of book, with her, input and advice on so forth. And then, so she puts the whole book design together, and we work on the illustrations. Now, most of the illustrations that come from my suggestions is what I think the illustration should be, or how I envisage it. It's not like a traditional publishing, perhaps, where it's, the editor hands it out to a completely separate illustrator to do the illustration, and the editor is controlling that. This is much, much more involved, which is good. It's good because you get involved in the whole process.
Okay.
But that doesn't stop. I've had one of my books, the first one I did was the Soxies, and that was actually illustrated by a friend of mine's daughter, who was 15 at the time. So that was then put together by somebody completely different. And then for Little Picture Books, we just redid the EPUB and everything else.
Maybe we can show your website with some of the images so people can get an idea of the kind of thing here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I downloaded this one here, Conrad's Cool Drool, because I have grandchildren who just love body fluids and farts and things like that.
Yeah. It was designed around that. It was all based upon my son, who's now 20, who drooled a lot when he was a baby. Put it that way. Not his name wasn't Conrad. Conrad is the name of a friend of theirs.
Okay. I can actually I can flip through this if you want. Do you want to maybe? Is this a good one to look at?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a good one. Yeah.
Just hang on. Yeah, maybe you just talk a bit more about this.
the whole concept came around, what can you use this drool for? And then just basically thought of something else, using it as hair gel. And Conrad, as I said, is a friend of ours. So Conrad, cool, drool had a better ring to it. And then just come up with a story of, instead of having a lemonade stand, you're selling hair gel, which then becomes colored hair gel. And it just makes a wonderful, shapes and sizes that people could use.
Oops, I don't have the right one here.
Yeah.
I just had, it's actually, I've got it loaded up in Apple Books here. That's why I'm trying to share it.
Yeah. So, and then instead working with the illustrators, as I said, I come up with my mind. I have to have a sense of what the picture is going to look like, because you've got to write words that are not duplicating the picture. So that's where this comes from. So when I don't know how other authors write just a text. I don't know how you can do that. And then somebody else comes up with the pictures. I personally don't understand how that works. And I find it's a lot of fun coming up with pictures.
Yeah, no, it's very creative.
I enjoy doing that process as well. And the more pushback or the ideas that other people can put into it, the better from my perspective. Yeah. And of course, what happens is if you then say, well, I can show this, so you don't have to write it, and appreciate that side. But also, if I do this, then you can write something different. And it doesn't really change the flow of the story. It just shortens the number of words you might need, or you might just have a little different tack to the story.
Do you want to read this?
No, not particularly.
Okay, I'll just flip through it so you get an idea. Right.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I've seen like some of my grandchildren have had books of a style similar to this. And,
right.
Yeah. So but it's fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I think the real difficulty I personally have, and a lot of people don't, is just keeping the number of words short. Yeah. When I first started looking at picture books, a picture book was typically something between 1,000 and 1,500 words. And now they're talking about between 600 and 800 words. And I'm thinking that's difficult to tell any kind of story, but there's an art to it. There is definitely an art. So. Yeah.
Some of the better ones I've seen have been relatively few words and
absolutely.
Maybe 20 frames, but you get the idea.
Yeah, and I think that's one of my newer books. I originally started out with very few words in it, but it expanded as we had to make a better story than what I'd originally envisaged. So, but that would be if you can come up with a story that has very few words and lots of pictures. I mean, it's a bit like if you have, ideally the ideal picture book is a book without any words. Like mime, I guess.
Yeah, mime. And some of the best photographers can do that. They can tell the story with just the images, like a series.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's why I think it is a work to, and that's why you have editors coming in and saying, okay, you can cut that out, show this, because again, when you're in the middle of the story, you don't often, you have to take a step back and revisit it to see whether or not you can shorten the words. And sometimes it doesn't matter how many times I've looked at a story, I can't shorten the number of words in it. Somebody else comes in, has a different approach, and they can say, well, you don't need this, and this. And then you get an idea, okay, well, if I don't need it there, I don't need it somewhere else. And so that helps the whole editing process. And that's part of the process, I guess,
And then you get the people at The Simpsons who can take something like The Shining or War and Peace or Moby Dick and do it in 20 minutes, and then you don't feel like you've missed anything. It's pure genius, really.
Well, who was it? I remember after watching the Lord of the Rings movies came out, and somebody said, well, actually, why don't we just get the eagles to carry the main characters straight to the the Mount Doom and put the ring in, and then we'll shorten the book to about 3 pages. There are different ways around to solve problems.
Yeah, I sort of said the world's shortest version of Macbeth. Macbeth saw 3 witches Macbeth lost his head. That's it. It's a total. You're missing some of the experience, though.
Yes, yes. I was reading a bit about Macbeth the other day, and what actually some of the words that the witches said actually meant in real life. So I can't remember what they were now, but it was interesting.
Well,
I have newt doesn't mean I have newt, for example.
Yeah, like it's a good thing that people don't recognize the language, else it would be banned from all schools forever. Because some of that stuff is really raunchy. Like some of those, especially some of the side characters making these little jokes. It says when you put the images together, oh my God.
Well, and they're also very violent, a lot of them. So
yeah, very violent. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Anyway, but so you okay, so you're putting out these books. So how were you selling them and distributing them? What's your
my goal is to distribute all my books through schools, through the fundraising organization of schools. So through the PAC, PTAs, or whatever they're called, as a fundraiser for the school. So instead of selling them on Amazon, I promote them through the school fundraising organization. They register, get a code where every time a parent buys a book, then the school gets a commission. And it just seems to me that's a more long-term effective way of doing it. But we'll see over time if people want to sign on. And of course, part of what will help that process is having other authors on board. So you've got a bigger selection of books to people to choose from, and having more books in general. Also, all my books are translated into French and Spanish because of the two primary languages in North America. But also, we'll be looking at translating to the other major languages this year. So,
what's your next language in your list here?
Well, because we're living here in Vancouver, Mandarin.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Hindi, Punjabi, and possibly Arabic or Farsi. Farsi's a big population here, big secondary language. And
20% of North Vancouver.
Yeah, and it's great because so there's lots of people available to help translate that process. And then hopefully obviously that will have appeal beyond the borders of North America, and so globally you can appeal to a lot more people globally.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah,
I sometimes say when people ask about the languages in Vancouver, and I said, well, if you go to an ATM, there's English, or sometimes the first language is Chinese. So it says, I don't even think there's French on an ATM in Vancouver, right? And that's supposed to be our second official language.
I don't know offhand, and I won't comment on it. But the other thing is also it's just what appeals globally and internationally as well, and so that's a part of it.
Yeah, that's great. So
the only things what I was going to say is I probably am going to, if anything I do is in verse, I probably won't translate it, because part of the process is that having things in verse and learning things by verse is an easier way of retaining the information, particularly if it's a foreign language. So if you're part of it is that people want to learn English, can learn the song or the chanting it or singing it, and that hopefully they'll retain it. So and again, you can lose the translation a lot from verse into translating into other languages. So I probably won't.
That's a special skill to do that. I have an edition of a Russian poet, and it's got the original Russian. It's got a translation into English, which captures the meaning, and then it's got an attempt at the verse, which it's kind of fascinating to see. Well,
I mean, I did my first book, The Soxies, that is in verse, and I did have that translated into Spanish and French. But I can, and they've done it very well. But you're trying to take something and then make it rhyme as well as capture the story, and that's
for sure.
And it's a little bit like trying to, you can do a play on words in English, but it has no meaning when you translate it, into, because you've got completely different words, and therefore there's no play on the words.
Even as simple as like a cereal box has something in French and something in English, they're not the same. It's sort of an idiom that has, sometimes it's not even the same idea.
Well, if I recall correctly, our national anthem's not the same. So in French as in English, there are slightly different words.
Yeah.
But for example, in the latest one, Danica and Dad versus the Mice, I've got, in the introduction, I put, Dad and Danica survived the tail, TALE, or should that be the TAIL? Well, that's not going to translate into most languages because they don't have the same sound, the same spelling. So,
yeah. It's like I was a literature student, and I was drawn into Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, and actually Dostoevsky can be much funnier in Russian than in English. So a lot of stuff gets, because there's a lot of it's like it's a lot of it's punny, right? And
right, same
like
thing.
With the names and the languages and stuff, and behind it, if you got those connections and allusions, it seems a lot less grim. It's usually a very grim topic he's talking about, but some of the language.
I was about to say Dostoevsky's quite grim.
Yeah, it's just like this, like the Brothers Karamazov, the narrator once in a while pick that up, and it's just, that's actually just hilarious, the way he's describing these things, right? And
in Russian.
I didn't do the Russian, but I had somebody at UBC came who was a Russian scholar, and he went through and illustrated the funny parts that we miss in English, right? Because says when he's talking about this is, in Russian, it's kind of an alluding to something. And, it's, to a Russian who hears this, it's going to be much funnier than to somebody who's listening to the translation. So,
but you could do the same thing with Shakespeare. I mean, you could I remember I think it was about the 9th grade, and actually doing Macbeth to death with all the subtexts and, what was he really alluding to here, and what do these words mean, and all the rest of it. And by the time you finish, you really don't want to listen to Macbeth ever again, because you've just killed it off. Literally. It's too much. And the same thing, I remember we did Gulliver Travels at grade 10, and the same thing is you have to go through it and understand all the political references that are being made, because that's what it was, political satire. But you don't, it's brilliantly done because it's a children's story. But if you go into what's behind it, it's even cleverer.
Yeah, one person to describe Devante's Divine Comedy as the most important book that nobody's ever read, and there's some parts of it that they're absolutely tedious because they're all references to local politicians and people, right? So to understand what they're referring to is a lot of hard work. And,
yes.
Yeah. Anyway, the other thing you had mentioned when we talked before, that you do visits to schools and you do readings. How does that look?
Well, I basically I had one just before Christmas, a local school here, and perhaps a little bit older than my original target audience, which is typically 4 to 7. These are guys who were 7 and 8. So that was fun. And because the best way of presenting it was using a projector, so projecting the book onto their whiteboard, and that doesn't create quite the same atmosphere for reading as sitting around in a circle, with the lights down low, that kind of thing. So that was a little bit of a learning curve, but they were very well. And of course, the kids went well, and the kids, being older, are asking more sophisticated questions. One of them was, what's the sequel to this book? When's the sequel to this book coming out? What happened next? Which I wasn't really expecting. So I've committed to writing a sequel to my book, The Snow Goblins.
Okay. So when you do these readings, are you getting paid for it, or is it more as part of the programs for their fundraising, or what? How does
No,
that?
it's at the moment I don't get paid for it, on the assumption that one day become highly sought after author, then maybe we will do. But I'm very happy to get out there and just read to the kids, and just part of the fact of being, my kids are all grown up. You don't have that instant audience of, is this book funny? Are the kids enjoying it? I mean, yes, they enjoyed it when they were younger. Having rewritten some of the stories, are they still funny? Do they still enjoy them? So it's good to get out amongst the kids and just to read books and share the whole joy of reading, and get some. And kids are very bright and very creative, and get some ideas for books as well.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
So I put the website address there, littlepicturebooks.com.
Great, thank you very much.
And we'll put the up on the screen again, maybe. Okay. Anyway, do you have any kind of discount or anything, or what would you like people to do?
I'm trying not to do the discounting because, if I bundle the books together, which we're working on right now, because it's a fundraiser, we're trying to raise money for the schools. So if you start discounting it, then you're not going to get as much money for the schools. And, the ebooks are not that,
no,
in my opinion, relatively inexpensive. Doing the hardcover and the print and the soft and paperback, there's not a lot of money in those.
No.
The cost, shipping, and everything else, there's minimal amount of money, so it's very hard to discount those and actually cover costs and things at the moment, anyway, without having a massive run where you've got much lower costs and things.
Yeah, I'm just going to show the list of books because, as you said, they're very inexpensive.
Yeah.
And then there's you got quite a lot of variety. My other question was, like, how many of these are yours and how many are other people's? Like, what's
at the moment, all the ones up there are mine. The other people, we're working on that as we speak to get at least 2 other people are interested in uploading their books. So these are all mine, and I've got coloring books in there at the moment. These are PDFs to download, but we're working with print on demand for the hard copies and the coloring books and paperbacks as well. So it's developing as we go through.
Yeah, and as we said here, like $1.99 for a coloring book, pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, that's the download. The actual printing it off and having it shipped to somebody is going to be more expensive.
Yeah,
but and again, part of it is you're going to make, you're raising money for schools, so a good chunk of that's going to the school. And if you discount it, then they're going to get less, which doesn't work.
Okay. Is the best place to reach you through the website?
Yes, or you can reach, it's probably the best place to reach me now. Well, my direct email is simondorey@lpbec.com.
Okay. But if they go to the website here, there's a information, an admin at form. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're looking for schools anywhere, I assume.
Yes, I mean
French and Spanish.
Yes, and I don't know exactly what other school countries necessarily have, how their schools are run in the same way. I know, for example, in the UK, they do have the same kind of thing. They have fundraising organization. I don't know whether in parts of Europe they have the same thing, or in South America or other parts of the world, whether their schools have fundraising organizations within them, whether they're completely funded by the government or what. So actually, it's part of the just project. Hopefully, I will be working with some people to get all that information together. But yes, being able to do the same thing in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, or even India, because India has a very large English-speaking population. So and then just figuring that out, the best way of getting the books into those markets. But right now, focus is United States, Canada, UK, because those are the biggest markets.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's fun, challenging but fun.
Challenging, yeah. I think that's the thing is, you wouldn't have started if it wasn't fun. You started with your children, creating things for your kids, and then you. I guess at some point you just sort of said, well, other people might be interested in these too.
Yes, that's very much what it's about. And, I find the entire creative process very enjoyable, particularly working with other people, directly, getting some input from them, that kind of thing. A lot of fun. At times it's frustrating because you can't quite get the story out. You know what you want to achieve, but it's not quite coming out on the paper, which is where having good, solid editors is a real benefit. So yes, it's a lot of fun, and hopefully it continues to be so.
Okay. So let's go back to your team a bit. So you do the basic writing. You've got at least one editor you work with,
I have two editors at the moment.
two editors, and then there's a person who's a bit of agency for the
Yes,
graphic design, right? So,
graphic design, and has, as I said, a stable of illustrators that we can pick and choose from. And I think I've used 3 or 4 of her illustrators on different books. And then, and they put everything together for the upload. And I have a team does the website, does the social media,
okay,
and just maintains uploads of books and things. All of this can be learned by yourself. It just takes longer to do everything.
takes longer.
Yeah.
So I indirectly from one of my colleagues who's talking to somebody who wants to get into this, and maybe we'll put them talking to you because you could probably give them some advice and help.
Yeah, I'm very happy to do that. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know much about what you call the traditional method of publishing, but very happy to give advice on the whole self-publishing side.
Well, I'm going to make a comment that the traditional method of publishing probably doesn't work for the majority of people, as you said that one of the publishing houses maybe puts out 12 titles in a whole year. At that rate, there's
they're a small publishing house, but the reality is that I'm sure the large companies like Scholastics and other ones who are doing children's books have a lot more than that. But
it's still finite.
It's and it's also takes longer to do. I think, from my understanding, it takes a lot longer from start to finish, and you've got to have what they want or what they perceive to be the market wants. So there could be different opinions. I mean, my book, The Outstanding Little Picture Book, is all about a book that wishes to get published, and all the problems along the way that happens. And so please read that.
Please read that.
And it's not supposed to be I outline some of the issues around publishing and stuff. So traditional publishing.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just like sometimes people say, well, I want to publish a book, but do I need an agent, right? Well, probably you do. And it's probably 10 times easier to publish the thing yourself than to get an agent.
Well, I mean, there are lots of courses around to help people get their books in a position to approach agents and or publishers to help with their publishing the book. And so if people want to go that route, then that's fine. There's lots of information about it, as there's lots of information about the whole self-publishing route, what you need to do, how to write the books, how to position them, how to sell, market them, whether you're doing Amazon or somewhere else, all the work that, how best email marketing campaigns. There's an awful lot of information out there.
Yeah, a lot of information, a lot of groups. I'm a member of the Grand Connection, which is based out of Vancouver and British Columbia based, but it's worldwide. And they have an authors group there with quite a few people who help with writing and publishing. And and they have a weekly, I think it's once a month or once every 2 weeks, where people present different ideas, different approaches. So there's lots to learn. No shortage.
There is, and there's and there are other organizations that you can join as an author and that have the same kind of connections and things like that. So there's lots out there, and technology is changing as well. Just for animating books, reading along books, that kind of thing. So part of our goal this year is to get all the books with a read along component to it, so that people can basically learn how to read more effectively.
No, that'd be good. Like an audio component so they can see it on the screen and then they can hear it.
And as the as you move along, the words get
Yeah.
highlighted, so you're learning how to read. That to me, that's very useful. I mean, my son basically taught himself to read by using computer programs, that should incorporate games and things, but he was more interested in learning how to read. So he taught himself, quite relatively quickly too.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, in a fun way. All right.
Well, thank you very much for joining, and let us know about your next books when they come out.
We'll do that. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, and for you in the audience, if you have a school, a fundraiser interested in talking with Simon and see what we can do.
Great. Thanks a lot, Greg. Have a great one.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.